Hey everybody, Blake T. Wild here, and welcome back to the Ultimate Era! I have been tirelessly working away to cover as many original Ultimate Marvel comics as I can possibly handle. And you know what I've found out? Is that I truly do enjoy the original Ultimate Marvel universe and the books that came out of it. Even the bad ones, for the most part. But there's something that I have always wondered, and that is, why does Captain America moonlight as Black Panther in Jeff Loeb's Ultimates 3? Because outside of Ultimate Origin and a couple later Avengers issues, we never really see the real Black Panther in this universe. Well, dear viewers, we're about to find out why Captain America was Black Panther. Released in 2008, written by Jeff Loeb, with art by Marko Judevic and Rafa Sandoval, this is Ultimate Captain America Annual. The book begins several years in the past, probably the 1980s, based on where everything lines up, as T'Challa Udaku battles a panther within the Wakandan jungle during the Trial of the Panther, and he fails, quite horribly I might add. Later, his brother M'Baku finds him bleeding out, his throat cut open. Sometime later, M'Baku speaks to their father, T'Chaka, reprimanding him for allowing T'Challa to attempt the trial, believing that his younger brother has been too coddled to handle it, and clearly he was right. But he also laments that it should have been himself, not T'Challa, to undertake the risk. And for 17 hours, T'Challa is operated on, and M'Baku asks his father why he's contacted the Americans for help. T'Chaka tells him that he will do anything to save the life of his son. But M'Baku asks at what cost? Because T'Chaka has made a special agreement to trade Wakandan technology to the Americans for saving T'Challa's life. And eventually T'Challa is handed over to the Canadian-American joint organization, crazy idea, right? Called Weapon X. For some time, T'Challa is operated on, and eventually his life is saved, but he's rendered mute, and he's also experimented on, given retractable metal claws as a way for Weapon X to recreate the Wolverine, and he is also forcibly evolved and mutated. He's not a mutant, he's more of a mutate. Think Deadpool, or I suppose Spider-Man. T'Challa in the Ultimate Universe has a healing factor, increased physical capabilities, and physiology, as well as the claws, but for some reason that healing factor won't fix his throat. Later, as we all know, Nick Fury discovers T'Challa in an underground Weapon X lab, and he's taken as the sole survivor by Fury's SHIELD strike team. Fury makes contact with the Wakandans after he sort of takes T'Challa under his wing. Fury reveals to T'Chaka that the Black Panther, as he was codenamed by Weapon X, is safe and taken care of. However, whatever arrangement King T'Chaka and Weapon X made is obsolete. His son is now property of the United States government. Cut to the recent present. Black Panther faces off against Captain America. They've been sparring for the past 3 hours, but Black Panther has yet to handily defeat Steve. Fury heads into the training room beneath the Triskelion, and Fury dismisses Black Panther and invites Cap to come have a chat upstairs with him. Later that night, on a balcony overlooking the Giant Men guards and the Rocket Men of the Triskelion, Steve notes that the Black Panther has great skill, especially with his claws and ability to see in the dark. Fury asks Cap if he thinks that the Panther is ready to join up with the Ultimates. Steve says that's not his call. Fury then invites him to take the Panther under his wing for now, because Fury believes that the Black Panther can be as good as Steve if he has a great mentor. And sometime later, Black Panther and Captain America work on a mission taking down Thunderball, a situation for this character that does not make a lick of sense. But since it is a shitty Jeff Loeb story, I don't care, and I am retconning this myself, because who's gonna stop me? So, I am saying that this is instead Ultimate Marvel's version of Absorbing Man. Carl Creel in this universe is a giant black dude, because honestly, he looks more like Absorbing Man than he does Thunderball. And there's no Absorbing Man representation in the Ultimate Marvel universe. So Absorbing Man wreaks havoc with his wrecking ball as he breaks into a bank of delicious gold to absorb. Cap sends Panther into action, and he makes quick work of Creel, although something blows up. I'm not sure what. Panther gets Creel subdued, and the two watch as he's apprehended by S.H.I.E.L.D. Steve has, however, had enough of Panther's weird silent treatment, and he asks that Panther remove his mask so that Steve can actually see his face and gain a level of trust among the two, especially if they're going to keep working together like this. And T'Challa removes his mask, and Steve sees the massive scars along his neck. Later that night, Steve arrives at Fury's office, and Cap demands to know more about the Panther. Who he really is, where he came from, what the hell happened to his neck, and why the hell does he have claws like a Lucky Jim? Fury incorrectly reveals to Steve that, like Wolverine, Panther is a mutant. Fury tells Steve that he's from a remote village in an African country called Wakanda, and when his conservative father found out he was a mutant, he disowned him and cast him out, so S.H.I.E.L.D. took him in and did the right thing. Steve asks about the scars, and Fury tells him that they don't know. Suggests it might have been the Panther's father who did it to him. Quite some time later, after the Ultimates have gone independent, Steve and Tony hang around the Stark mansion on Fifth Avenue and discuss the current situation of the Ultimates and their membership. Tony asks if Steve is upset that he proposed that Janet become the leader of the team, but Steve remarks that he's more upset that Tony agreed to keep Hank Pym under house arrest in the mansion instead of locking him up and throwing away the key. Tony takes a swig and notes that if they're going to pull off running a team of superheroes on their own, he needs as much brainpower as he can get. Tony brings up Steve's jealousy over Janet and Hank getting closer in the intervening months since the Liberators' attack, and Steve sighs and stares out at the rain. That night, Steve visits the Panther at his quarters in the Triskelion and tells him to get moving because they have a special training tonight. And it doesn't matter if Cap isn't technically part of S.H.I.E.L.D., he's not going to stop working with the Panther. T'Challa stands up and turns his laptop around to show Steve an article about the King of Wakanda holding a summit with the U.S. regarding a trade agreement. And T'Challa opens a Word document and types out a message to Steve, revealing to him his true identity, what happened, and Steve asks T'Challa who isn't letting him go back to his home country, and T'Challa types Fury. Steve finds Fury at the target range in the Triskelion and tells Fury that Panther is ready. Steve asks how this works now that Janet is in charge and how they plan to keep Black Panther's history classified. Fury takes a gander at his Hulk target and simply tells Steve that no one is going to doubt Captain America if he vouches for someone. So a few days later, Steve meets Janet at the Stark Mansion Ultra Gym as they watch Black Panther perform his abilities, and she agrees to recruit Panther onto the team. A few days after that, Tony shows off to Steve and T'Challa his Black Panther suit, complete with adamantium claws that snick out just like the real Panthers. Steve thanks him for the help, and Tony asks what this is all about. Steve simply says it's about Fury, and the lies that he fed directly to Steve's face, and that Steve is doing this for T'Challa, to help him. Tony tells him Fury lies to everyone and jokingly wonders if this is just so Steve can stay close to Janet without her knowing. Steve tells Tony to knock it off, and then he and T'Challa take one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s supercopters across the globe to Wakanda. Steve Rogers tells T'Challa of Wakanda to stay as long as he needs. He'll cover for him. Steve then speaks for T'Challa by wondering if T'Challa is wondering why Steve went through all the trouble, all these months of planning just to do this. Cap tells him that he might be naive enough into thinking things should just be fair, but he's honestly not sure what the real reason is. And they shake hands, and Steve wishes T'Challa good luck, and the son of Wakanda deploys out of the chopper as it soars downward, and he lands before the mighty Wakandan capital. The end. Hope you enjoyed this very brief, short little entry in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. I know plenty of people in the Ultimates 3 book had questions in the comments about what was going on with Black Panther. Here you go. It's not the best. Definitely not. But I did enjoy it for the most part. I especially enjoyed the humanization of Ultimate Captain America as opposed to the Miller-era hard-headed soldier. I do really like Ultimate Steve Rogers' evolution as just a human being. I think this does well to show that, because at this point he's been in the modern world for some time, and he's acclimating, and he's learning, and he's changing as a person. He's becoming a bit more empathetic now, I think, towards others, not just himself. Although, he still dislikes the French, and in the future he will use a kindergarten class as human shields when he fights War Machine. But I won't say he outright hates the French. If anything, he might have developed a disdain for the controlling French government in the 1940s rather than the thought of their resistance and their soldiers. Maybe that's what his real issue is with the French. More the people in charge rather than the people. And it is disappointing that this is kind of the last time we see Black Panther in the Ultimate Universe, because it may as well be the last time. Because he doesn't show up again until Ultimate New Ultimates in 2010. And he only appears for like 4 issues, if that. Needless to say, this was yet another piece of Ultimate Marvel wasted potential. And yeah, there are more oddities that don't really align with the rest of the Ultimate Marvel universe in this, and I just blame Jeff Loeb and his lack of attention to detail or care. Early on, I think Fury notes to Cap that Black Panther is dead and Hawkeye's taking a leave of absence, even though if that was happening when that happened, the Ultimates wouldn't be a part of Fury's command, since they all follow Steve's lead and leave S.H.I.E.L.D. and strike it out on their own. And, you know, the whole Thunderball thing, which just doesn't make sense. Because even though he appears both before and after this in Ultimate Spider-Man as a good guy working for damage control, suddenly he's doing this, which is why I think it works better if you just say, it's Absorbing Man. And the main takeaway, though, is that a lot of time passes in this one annual. Not even from T'Challa's perspective, and even looking at that, like, that's decades of time. What I think makes the most sense is that Cap is tasked with mentoring Black Panther post-Ultimates 1, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Ultimate War happens, and he and T'Challa perform missions for S.H.I.E.L.D. between then and Ultimates 2, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Then they go independent, you know, and they do their own thing. Ultimates 3 eventually happens. Black Panther is brought on before Ultimate Power, which is just a mess. And that this whole timeline is a godforsaken mess. Let me know your thoughts on the book in the comments below. Does this answer any questions you have about Ultimate Black Panther? Maybe. But let me know. As always, check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Smokey's videos, where you get early access to videos when available. All of my comics are posted on there in high-quality images, with my commentary included for the behind-the-scenes aspects, as well as movie commentaries. Also, check out my Etsy shop, blatesywild.etsy.com, where you can pick up the physical copies of all of my comics. Every purchase comes with a free head sketch of any character of your choosing. And my podcasts, the Comic Shtick Podcast, where I discuss comics and pop culture and anything else that interests me. I Need Some Disney, where my Disney-obsessed wife and I discuss all things Disney-related. And my secondary gaming channel, Smokey's Save File, where I play games. Poorly. I will see you next time. Bye!